Growing Luminous from this year's 2025 Almanac with the theme of Light on the Path. This quote is called Growing Luminous. On the mystic path, we create our own light. And at first we struggle, blind and baffled, seeing nothing, hearing nothing, unable to think, unable to imagine. We seem deserted by dream, vision, or inspiration, and our meditation barren altogether. But let us persist through weeks or months, and sooner or later that stupor disappears. Our faculties readjust themselves and do the work we will them to do. Never did they do their work so well. The dark caverns of the brain begin to grow luminous. We are creating our own light. George William Russell, on this year of Light on the Path.
Thank you.
Yes. So in honor of yesterday being not just from an American perspective, the celebration of the Declaration of Independence, but from a more global perspective, from the point of view of the Institute of World Culture, in fact, where Carolyn is now located in a side office. We celebrated yesterday the Declaration of Interdependence. And for that reason, we have a topic for this week, a community of conscience. And I'd like to read our quote for the week before introducing our presenter. This is a quote from someone whose name I'm going to pronounce in my best effort. In the course of history, there comes a time when humanity is called to shift to a new level of consciousness, to reach a higher moral ground, a time when we have to shed our fear and give hope to each other. That time is now. Wangari Maathai. Today, we have someone who's going to give us a little insight on this idea of a community of conscience, and in fact, on this African woman, the first African woman to be awarded a Nobel Peace Prize, Wangari Maathai. This is Greg Hatton. Greg Hatton is a longtime friend of Cliff's and mine and Still and Moving Centers, and he has extensive experience in a number of fields, one of which is photography, also videography. He's put together feature-length films, and he's just a true student of life, and he is always seeking to expand humanity's awareness and knowledge. He has done work in Africa himself. He has a school prototype in mind that he and some friends are working to bring about in Morocco. And he also has two mentees in Ghana, one of which I think is the young boy whom he found, who had taken his grandmother's sewing machine and made it into the motor for a motor scooter to be able to get around with in a place that's not so easily gotten around in. So he is somebody who's always working for everybody's best interest. So I think he's a great person for us to speak on this idea of community of conscience. And he does have connections with Africa. So Greg, can I hand it over to you now?
Yes. Hello, everybody. I'm Greg Hatton. Actually, this story was he used the sewing machine to make a scooter, not just for himself. That was actually primarily for the elderly community, the elderly people in his community, so that they had a means to get around that did not run out of gas, because it was solar powered and it would always regenerate power while they were waiting to ride it. And that's what he was doing. Samuel Abuaji. Yeah, it's thank you for having me. It's always a good time to sit and speak with Cliff and Renee and everybody else from Still and Moving. people that are very dear to my heart, and to talk about just kind of the life story and the work of Wangari Maathai is pretty interesting because it's very timely. I don't think that there's a bad time for anything positive or a good time for anything positive. It's always time for something positive. And but this one, I think, in this moment is pretty powerful because what she championed with the Green Belt movement. Actually, I'll give you a little bit of backstory on the Green Belt movement. Um, During feeling the pressures of deforestation in her region in Kenya, um, of course, they were starting to lose out on food, starting to lose out on the water in the rivers that used to flow because the trees were gone and the whole environment suffered from that. And the first people to feel that were the women in the communities because they were the ones that prepared the food and took care of everybody. So she tried to find really a way, not just a way, a holistic way to to combat this and also empower her community to be able to fight against what they were feeling from this deforestation, and they began planting trees. And I think they started doing that in 1977, actually, is when they started this movement. And through the years, I mean, I think the numbers are something like over 5 million trees planted and 30,000 women learning how to do forestry and beekeeping and all these different essential things that can help um, build up the environment once again. And just like grassroots stuff, like you're taking some seeds, you're planting for crops and for trees and all that, and then seeing the world come back to life has given them a purpose, and but also a means to support themselves. And I think that what's really interesting about what that movement did and does and kind of proves the point is that that we can all do something, right? We all have a power to um, like step into the arena where there needs to be something said or done. And it might not be something at a grand scale, but a lot of people doing stuff at a smaller scale can help raise the morale. It can help, in this case, raise the entire environment. They were surviving, or actually, bringing life back to land that was dying out because of the deforestation. And because this, she was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize, first African American or African woman to get a Nobel Peace Prize. And it's a pretty amazing story, but it's also something that I think that we've been talking about, Cliff and Renee, myself, about how even in these times where things are like, difficult, we can do something. And we are already doing something, just in these communications that we have, just in the friend groups and being the proper example. You're showing people a better way to address the problems that might exist in front of you. And so this was the perfect, this is my intro, but this is the perfect um, package to kind of show that and work outside of ourselves to see an example of what it could be. And, you know, then trying to learn, dissect it a little bit and play it back in our own situations, see what we can do in a similar vein. And that's kind of what the story of Wangari Maathai talked to me about, and I think that it's very, very I have a strong belief in it because I practice it. I try to preach it that we all can do something. We all have something to say, and we all have little things that we can do that might, be just a seed, but it will blossom in the future. So that's kind of the rundown of what I hope this discussion turns into. But have you have you guys or anybody read or listened to any of what she's spoken about in her previous talks?
We haven't, no,
You haven't?
she's new to all of us.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, I've been listening to her for the last couple of days. I listened to her Nobel Peace Prize speech, and a couple of other interviews that she had done. And it's a really simple idea of, like one of the questions that they asked her is like, so what does this tree have anything to do with peace? Like, how are you getting a peace prize for planting trees, And the answer was really eloquent. She's like, we looked around the environment, we chose what could we do? Like, what can we control that has a broad reaching um, product? And because the trees were gone, she thought about how the trees affected everything around their world. The trees provided shade, also provided stability in the soil, also provided a home for animals. If the trees were fruit trees, they provided food. And when the all of that is at play, like the rivers had places, boundaries and all this kind of stuff. Like the whole ecosystem was affected by the tree. So like if we bring back the trees, we should see all of these things rise up. And sure enough, that's what happened. So the idea of trying to figure out like what things can we do that actually have these types of effects um, was ingenious because it's easy enough to plant trees, and the peace came about it because the injustice that was done to the environment, the traditions of her family. She even mentioned this before Christianity came to the African continent. The traditions that they practice with was that, you're thankful for the trees, you're thankful for the environment that you're in, and you give reverence to them because they give fruit, they give food, shade, all this kind of stuff. And that seemed to stop once, the colonizing bodies came in and taught different ways of doing things. And that's when trees became commodities. So they lost the tradition that they had. And she was trying to bring back a tradition and a culture of that she came up with, that she grew up with. And in doing that, she empowered a group of her people and the people that came after her to embrace where they come from. And she said something really interesting about, using the word culture in this example, because in some senses culture can be like a very like, how do you want to say it, like combative thing, like my culture is different than your culture thing. But what's also really interesting is that the conversation has a flip side where when you understand the culture of a people place, that's when you can introduce justice to those people and to that place. You understand like this is what they're about, and you can engage with them better because you understand the parameters of this game. If I say game, because the example would be like if you walked onto a volleyball court with a baseball mitt and a bat, I don't think, the communication is going to be well because, the culture is completely different, So it was really like she was trying to find a way to conserve her culture, conserve her environment, to empower the women that were there. And she ended up doing, I guess she almost, took care of five different things with one you know, approach to solving a problem. And that's empowering. She empowered a lot of people and a lot of women in her surroundings to basically take up the mantle and be able to provide for the family again, provide for the village again, provide for their whole social economy. And that uplifted the morale, that educated people a little bit more, and, spread that knowledge out. And so I I want to go to the point that I mentioned earlier, how we all can find these ways to contribute to something that's going to feed the greater populace, even if it's just communication with people that might not have the knowledge on how to do something or the experience to do it because they might love it and then be able to help you on the backside. There's so many different ways that we are literally the people that we've been waiting for, and that plays in this situation because if you think about it, if she had not started this movement in 1977 of simply just planting trees, what would have been the opposite? Just continued deforestation. The town or the people would have probably moved away, and we'd have nothing. But then by doing that effort, that small effort of just like, hey, plant a tree, plant a tree, plant a tree, forests have grown back, rivers have come back, people have gained all this. So, like, every little bit that we can do, I believe, has an effect, and a positive effect if we're thinking about it the right way and communicating it through. And I think it's going to end up being bigger than we believe, because I don't know if she thought that it was going to do as much as it did or get her a Nobel Peace Prize. Or she was a professor at university as well. So all of these things came from just taking action in a place where she knew that she could, in a time that she felt she needed to. And that's a beautiful thing. And it makes me want to, you know, do what I can. And to be honest, this is kind of a side note, but not really. I'm in this mode in life right now where I'm seeing parallels to everything that we're doing, seeing, and facing. And that effort that she has done to get these people building trees to keep the community uplifted and all that can be paralleled to a certain extent, even in this group right here, being led by Renee, and what the whole still movement is about. Still in movement. Hey,
Mm.
that's cool. Yeah, still a moving movement. Yeah, so I think that that's a parallel to like what we're seeing. It's like you're finding little things that you can do. Cliff's a champion at that as well. I'm a product of all that, so there's ways that we can apply, like Renee mentioned, my mentees that are in Ghana. I met them in 2022. I talk to them on the phone like every week, like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, either texting or phone call or a Zoom call, just to talk to them, to have somebody to talk to. It costs me nothing, just a little bit of time. And the morale that, you know, to hear what they're going through, to understand it better, to give them pieces of what I'm doing, to send them to meet friends that I have that might be out there. It's life changing for them to have that kind of exposure. We flew them out to Morocco to see our project in Morocco. And that was the first time I witnessed somebody's world completely open up. And it cost me nothing, really. All I did was, you know, a moment to think, how can I do this? How can it happen? You know, and we all have that capability because, okay, I get pumped up about this stuff, but one thing that I've been championing a lot is the fact that we seem to be in this age where we believe we're not the ones that can solve the problem. And we're like looking like, oh, well, this great person did this and this great person did that. Um, and they may have passed, they might have been alive a long time ago. But one thing that I'm starting to realize, and I actually realized it while living in Hawaii, I was reading through all the works of the different photographers that I study, and a light bulb clicked on, and I realized that all the work that I was looking at from these photographers was created when they were my age. And I was like, oh, so if they were my age and they made this, what am I doing right now in this age? And what is it going to mean going forward? And in that moment, that's when I really stood up on my own 2 feet about the work that I create, because I realized that I'm already a part of this conversation, and I definitely give the respect to everybody that's come before me. But in this day and age, in this body and mind, it's my turn to do the same thing. And that's going to be to honor the people that came before me, but also to help and guide the people that come after me. And I think that that is a parallel to what Professor Mathai was saying when she wanted to make sure that the traditions of her culture carried on, the traditions of her land carried on, because she knows, you know, she actually said something very beautiful in one of her speeches. And she was talking about how there might be a misunderstanding in the Bible where, or maybe it's a misinterpretation for whatever reason. Um, but there's a conversation where they talk about the fact that man was created on like the last day of God's creation, right? The seventh day, or she said it was Friday. And if God created everything and took Sunday off, he did the land and the animals and all that, and he stopped on our Friday is when the humans popped up. And she's like, that made me start to think about it. She's like, maybe she's like, if that's true, that means that everything on this planet can exist without us. But we are dependent on everything that is on this planet with us. Because if on the Friday, if we didn't come out, everything else was still operating as normal. And then we came in and, I guess the scripture is translated to saying that, we were given dominion of the planet. She's like, I think that we were more supposed to be custodians of the planet, not about domination, more about just kind of overseeing and making sure that things are going right, not just picking it apart and doing all this kind of thing. And that was a really interesting conversation that she gave. But with that, she realized that, maybe we need to keep the tradition of life of taking care of this land, taking care of each other. And this was her way of doing that. And I think that we all have that in us. So yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much.
hmm Thank you. Thank you. I have a bunch of other notes too, but once you get started, you just keep going. You just keep going. Um,
Well, let's see if we throw it open. You might
mhm,
accessing those notes in connection with things
Yep.
people have to say.
hmm
So would anybody like to make a kickoff comment or question, Cliff?
Well,
Well, I have a
first I
bunch of, I mean,
know where
Greg,
he lives.
oh,
Or can you
I'm
just
sorry, Carolyn. Did you have a
clarify that?
question?
I don't have a question except where do you live? I mean, and do this work?
I live in Los Angeles, California. That's where
Okay,
I'm living now. And
yeah,
I travel quite a bit. I'm in Florida right now.
there's
So
lots of work to do there, I'm sure.
that's lots of the work to do everywhere, to
Yeah.
be fair. Yeah. hmm Brother Cliff, did you have a question?
kind of, I guess, comment and question, but I mean, listening to your presentations got me thinking in a lot of different directions at once, and um, really inspiring ideas that you shared. And so first thing I was thinking was, I was drawn back to an article by Michelle Alexander, where she says that we are not the resistance, that we are the river, that these others, the status quo, all this other stuff that's pushing back is the resistance, but we're the
Absolutely
river.
true.
And the idea that we measure ourselves by our results maybe isn't the way to go about it. It's more finding ways for ourselves and others to get into that river, of that's basically harmony with nature, harmony with each other, and so forth. That's what it's all about. Not so much I did this or I did that, but how much in alignment with, say, nature or others or the future are we? Are we planting seeds, kind of? Not so much how big is the tree that we grew, And I was thinking
Exactly.
a lot of these words that we use, like interdependence, conscience, actually means sharing knowledge from the Latin, community, and so forth, or unity. All these things have to do with interconnectedness. And I was thinking the symbolism of tree is so rich, and especially one of the parts of the tree that we forget about, which is the roots,
Yep.
which spread out and interconnect with the roots of all these other trees. So a lot of this stuff is kind of happens more on the invisible plane, or areas that we don't really even notice, like in just how we meet somebody on the street, or in just the subtle details of life, is where maybe we can make the most value of
Yes.
our lives. But I was thinking the thing that I'm leading toward is my question, is that it seems like there's like this, almost like this pendulum or this teeter-totter, where in terms of one's mind, the way the human mind works, in terms of, are we living in a world of limitation and scarcity, or are we living in a world of abundance and plenty? And if our minds lean toward limitation and scarcity, we tend to want to hold things, you know. But if our minds are more able to see the abundance of nature and the abundance of human capability and plenty, it's a mindset. And the woman you're talking about, Wardi Matai or whatever her name.
Yeah, Wangari,
Wangari
Professor
Maathai.
Wangari Maathai. Yeah.
She took a world that looked like a world of scarcity, turning into a desert, and she turned it into a world of abundance.
Yes.
And I'm just wondering how we could take that idea of seeing something that seems, you know, kind of like a wasteland or a desert, and be able to see a way to bring forth, make it more fruitful in our
Yeah.
various, just by starting with how we approach ourselves and and other people in the world, by seeing it more as a realm of possibility, of hopefulness, of plenty and abundance versus scarcity and limitation.
Yeah. Yeah. It's oh, can I answer that real quick, or can I respond to that really quickly? The I agree, and I think that it's you know, what's presented to us is where that comes from, right? Like we're the I think the struggle that we have right now is how much people are taking in that speaks in one direction. You know, there's not enough balance in the game for people to actually make a choice. There's a very cynical situation happening in everything that pops into any media form right now. And, you know, without the proper education or exposure, I think that the result is that idea of scarcity. But where that falls short is when people actually get out of these bubbles and start to see with their own eyes what's actually out there, or what relationships with other people are actually like. Or the fact that everywhere you go, people are doing the same thing that you do. They're just wearing different clothes, you know. So those types of things, like, it is a big question. I'm thinking about that even with my photography. Like, how do I present my work to promote what you're talking about, rather than just throwing it out there like everybody else, and, you know, just be status quo. There's a quote that I love, and you might get this really good quote, Cliff. It says that only the guy that's not rowing can rock the boat. Yeah.
I like that. That's very good.
Yeah, that's super quality, because it takes, like, we are in this situation where all these things are happening. Yes. But like she said, like she did, you can't go on with it. You have to find a way to disturb it. And it doesn't have to be a grandiose thing. It just has to be a way to really find something that's going to have a tangible effect on everybody's life who's involved. And then consistency is everything, right? So it's about finding those pockets of opportunity to do that, and connecting with people, like really going out and finding out how we can connect with the right people. And Renee is doing that, you're doing that, and we just can't stop doing that. Yes, Renee.
I wonder if sometimes, well, I love the quote that you made. I mean, it's very quotable. We are the people that we have been waiting for.
Yeah, that was actually a quote by oh, I I, I think I have it on my phone. I'll find it for you and I'll send it to you. Yep.
Okay.
Hmm.
So I love that very quotable quote. And I just wonder whether sometimes we have a bit of a scarcity mindset in terms of thinking that we're the only ones who can, like, maybe our scarcity is in terms of not seeing other people out there to identify with that we feel as if we can coalesce with for
Yeah.
a stronger effect and just, and then that creates kind of that atlas feeling, doesn't it? And
Yeah. Like the weight of the world is on you
yeah,
specifically.
yeah.
Hmm.
And so I'm
Yeah.
wondering, how do we remind ourselves that really there are so many concerned and talented people in this world that we could be connecting with and oh, and I'm just remembering another quote now that I can only give you an approximation of. It's by Jill Bolte Taylor, the brain scientist who had she gave a TED talk called My Stroke of Insight when she watched herself have a stroke and she
Mm,
one half of her brain shutting down with the other half of her brain.
mm,
And her quote is that a healthy brain is like a healthy community. In a healthy brain, there are a lot of connections between all the different brain cells. And in a healthy community, there are a lot of connections amongst all the people of the community. And
hmm.
maybe that's kind of connected with this question of mine.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. Going back to the comment about there being parallels, there are definitely people in this world that are trying to figure this out the same way. I think the biggest thing that helped me um, in my struggle with all this is like my time that I spent with you guys. I mentioned how I was given an opportunity to be pulled back and see a lot of what was happening without reacting to it. And that gave me a lot of insight. It gave me a lot of perspective because I couldn't do what all my friends were doing when they were enraged or whatever. And I would have normally been able to do that. But if you're doing that, you're engaged in that, and then you don't see anything else. So with a lot of the stuff that's going on right now, I started to see a, a kind of what do you want to call it? A kind of coordinated effort of sorts. And I realized that, my frustrations at one thing was giving me blind spots to this, that, and the other, to friends, to all this kind of stuff, to people that might not have enough education on a subject, or my own ignorance in certain things. And I started to pull back and listen a little bit more. And I saw a lot more. And I could see where certain people from whatever part of the spectrum had similarities. And I started to talk to them individually and go into those lions' dens and just like raise a question, just to see what the response was, and also just to hear what, you know, these things were. And that actually gave me a lot more understanding. It gave me a lot more peace. Like I was pretty stressed out about a lot of things happening in the world. Still not happy with any of it, but I'm definitely a little bit calmer just from kind of finding more to talk about with people and finding a new way forward because nothing about what we knew is going to be the same. Everything is going to be from this point forward. Back what we had before is it's a different game right now. So understanding that and not trying to pull what came from the past and being focused on how to go forward has helped me a lot as well. It's like where do we take it from this point to get back to something that has that positive feeling or that attention to the communal aspect of things and really seeing that we are helping each other along the way and bringing light to that is what I'm on right now, rather than trying to point out people's errors.
Great. What are
Yeah.
your thoughts, David?
Like Cliff, there's so many directions this has taken me. maybe moving backward in like, I don't know that we can move back to a time that felt better. I think we need to move forward to some new way of feeling good.
Hmm.
Um, and I probably somewhere in the back of my head, there's this notion of what you were saying about focus. We might draw an analogy to the aperture of a camera lens, maybe opening the aperture up a little bit. That might be a discussion we need to take offline, but I think what struck me in something that Cliff said is there's, you know, nature itself, life exists because there is a will for evolution. There's a will for things to survive. Everything that exists because it has the will to survive. So I think the idea of taking our focus off of the outcome and on planting seeds, that really resonated with me. That there is this current of life, the life force itself, and it requires moving with it. So trying to put all these together into something that's reasonably coherent. And all of this goes in the backdrop of what's happening in world governance right now. And so I'm thinking about how, and this may be Darwinian in nature, but the idea that cooperation may be the more important aspect in looking at the notion of cooperation and competition and how they work together, but that systems that close down, like Cliff's analogy with how trees in the forest work well because they're connected, and the politics that tend to separate us, I think ultimately will fail because they don't have that very basic nature itself of connecting. And that when we try to disconnect and put up more borders, we ultimately, cut off the flow of life force itself. We got to stir the pot in a sense. We've got to mix it up. I know that people in my family who, they've basically never left the town they were born in, and their ideas are so closed down and so limited. They've never seen how other possibilities of how life could work. So it doesn't surprise me that the choices they make at the ballot box, because they just, gobble up whatever, they've been told without ever going out and testing their ideas in the world and seeing that people who are different from them are successful in life. That the whole world doesn't have to look like they do. And this is something I posted in Facebook yesterday is, I think the most insidious lie that's been told through all of this is that people who don't vote the way they do don't love this country, as an example, which is just heinous. And it creates so much division, even within families. We have to understand that people that are different from us have a valid point to say. We have to embrace. It's an idea of inclusivity, and this whole idea of shutting that down, it can't survive. Thank God.
Yeah, it's unsustainable. It's completely unsustainable.
So there's
it's interesting. No, I hear you. It's interesting because one of the things when I was talking about pulling back and starting to see this for kind of what it is, like it's specifically in this country. If I asked you, like, what is the most important thing that America produces or does as a country? Historically, what is the most powerful thing that America ever did? What would you say?
Me personally, I would say it's ideas.
Correct. Marketing.
Mm.
Marketing. Marketing is the most powerful thing that this country has ever done. And it's still to this day, I mean, You have people coming to,
Oh,
you
that's
know,
pretty jaded. What
well,
about all the
no,
ideas
no,
that stand behind this country's formation? I think that's much more powerful.
well, I mean, that's the thing. Even, and and this is why I'm saying that. Even in the founding of this country and all that, like there were some good points in it, but how it came about is kind of bad. You know, we talk about genocides happening in Gaza. We talk about what happened in the Holocaust, and we never talk about the Native American genocide ever. It's not even listed as a genocide. So that's part of the marketing that we're talking about. You know, there's some very good things that, have come from this country. I'm not trying to knock it to that point, but once we realize the depth of what we're talking about, pull back enough to see that, you can see what you're fighting against, and you can understand why people, like you said, David, are in their bubbles and don't know anything better. And then you have to say, okay, how do you burst that bubble? Because that bubble goes back generations. You know, that's kind of what we're faced with in this time. And I think that I think Dr. Martin Luther King, I think Malcolm X, I think Gandhi, I think the Dalai Lama, I think like all these leaders that were speaking for peace understood that. Like it's a lot bigger than the people that are in the room right now. It's a lot bigger than their parents, you know, like this system that we're in, there's a lot of layers to it, you know, and by understanding that we can calm ourselves a little bit more to understand like all of it is not, like you said, Renee, it's not Atlas. It's not like all of that is not on us. And it can't be because, like, I mean, individually, that would be almost like a death sentence to try to figure out that problem. But like Professor Mathai produced with her Greenbelt movement, there was a mechanism that can bring back morale and justice to an extent, and also a reason for people to work towards something better. Cliff, your hand is up.
Yeah, well, I kind of want to take the conversation in a little bit different direction, but first I would kind of respond to this idea that I think we have to see this interplay of light and darkness. And
Hmm.
in the formation of our country, there was a lot of hypocrisy, a lot of bad stuff, but there was also a beautiful vision that is built into it, with the first words in the Declaration of Independence that Tom Paine helped Thomas Jefferson coin, that all men are created equal. And we always are falling short of that inspirational virtue or vision, but it's something that we're striving for, and it kind of creates that uncomfortableness that how far we're falling short of it all the time. But I was thinking about this idea of conscience. The theme for today's talk is a community of conscience. And I was thinking of like Martin Luther King, Mahatma Gandhi and Socrates referred to the still small voice within, that being kind of the voice of conscience, and that these two individuals were able to really listen to this inner voice and gain direction of what to do. And I was wondering if perhaps Wangari Maathai had somehow this voice to say, I'm gonna plant trees. I'm gonna start a green movement, or whatever it's called, the green something, to begin this project. And it seems to me that in regards to a community, finding our connection to that community, we both discover it and create it. It's kind of like this simultaneous thing, but ultimately we place a flag. We say, this is my Dharma. This is what I feel is my place in this community and my purpose in this community to be of the best contribution. And once we make that kind of commitment, as Wangari did, then all of a sudden you start to see this community form, that there are other people doing this as well. And all these connections start happening. but in some way they don't happen unless one places a flag, unless one makes that commitment, makes that determination that this is what I'm going to do for the benefit of others, for the benefit of my family, for the benefit of my community, for the benefit of the world. However, but it's not until we kind of crack that nut, you know, that the connections start happening. But once
Yeah.
Wangari did that, all this whole movement happened. And in
You know,
Gandhi is sitting on a stone wall, and there's a reporter next to him named Walker, and he's trying to figure out what his next thing is going to be. And it's a beautiful section in the Gandhi movie where all of a sudden the reporter looks at Gandhi and goes, "You know what you're going to do." Gandhi had this epiphany of the Salt March. But before then, he was just struggling. He didn't know what the movement was going to be. But then he saw it. All he was going to do is take this really long hike and go grab a pinch of salt from the shore. And the British couldn't handle it, you know? It was the simplest act of defiance, but it came from this inner voice of conscience kind of guiding him. So I just was wondering if she had that kind of epiphany in how she started her movement.
I think that she did. And I think that this goes back to that whole thing about empowerment, right? Like she took action and started doing something. And like you just described, people saw it and they kind of it blew up into a movement. Well, we were talking about earlier about like just empowerment and just how we talk to each other in these parallels. And I mentioned how, still the moving is doing the same. Like the stuff that you do with Auntie Blanche, doing the same. The stuff that what you both have done with me, you're doing the same. Like we have to realize that we're already doing these things. And we almost have to find a way to express to everyone that's around us that they are already participating in this, not waiting for something to happen. We're already doing it. And a lot of times people think that like, oh, we're waiting for a Gandhi or we're waiting for somebody, but we don't see that we are actively doing this. Like I've that thing about the photography books and seeing my old like or my, the people that I look up to and realizing that I'm part of this already and standing on that. And it's going to inspire whoever's coming next to me because now I believe that I'm a part of this. I'm not just reading it, I'm living it. It's my story now. Not to discredit anybody that came above us, but it's our time for these actions, and we're literally living it. And you think about all the experiences that you've had with people and what they're doing and how they branched off. That's that trickle down effect that they got from you. And so finding a way to empower people, like people will come up to me and they'll talk about, oh, I can't like learn how to do this computer thing because it's just too hard. And my question, I always say this to people when they say something's too hard, I'm like, yeah, but you've already done hard things. Like, well, this is different. I was like, no, you know what's harder? I'm like, what? Learning to walk? You seem to be walking fine. You seem to be speaking Italian, English, French, German perfectly well to me. That was hard. You're graduated from school. You've got this car. You're driving it fine. All of these things took the process of you learning how to do it, and you've done it. You already understand the process of learning how to swim in the ocean or surf. So why can't you learn how to speak to somebody that you've never spoken before? Like that empowerment is what I believe or Professor Mathai gave to the people around her. It's like, look, we already do this. So what are we waiting for? Like, let's just do it, and the rest will take care of itself. So that conversation about that voice, I think we all have it. Like we choose to do something or something else every single day. You know what I mean? Like there was a choice to take a stand on something or to build this house or to make this for dinner. Like every level, we're making these decisions that, that we know we can do, or we decide not to. And putting the empowerment onto somebody next to you, like, no, I want you to do that because I know you can. That lifts the morale. That helps. They trust you. They understand that you trust them or believe in them. And that gives a whole new life and purpose to the people that you come around. And that's the communal aspect, because David, to your point, like, the whole division thing is unsustainable, because as a creature, we are communal. There's no person on this planet that can live by themselves. Like, I'm an adventure man, I'll be out in the woods. Okay, yeah, that's cool. But then when you come into contact with people, you won't know how to do anything. You know, I can live off of this. I know that's a very different living. But if you look at what we build together, the experiences, the laughter, the love, the camaraderie, uh, those are two very different things, and you can definitely tell what we're made to be doing. You know what I'm saying? So those that evidence is all around us in everything that we do, every single day, every single moment of every single day. We have that power within us, and I think it's more about awakening the fact that we are who we've been waiting for.
Mhm. I think you're right. We had the opportunity to celebrate one of the community leaders that Still and Moving Center encountered within the first year or two of our existence, when actually David and I became acquainted with each other within that time too. And it was a gentleman named Roger Epstein, definitely a friend of humanity, somebody who has at one point or another in his life considered himself to be a member of all the major religions of the world. Great guy. And he has been running for many years something called the Forgiveness Project. And in getting ready to honor him, I was doing some little back research, and first of all, he was the first person who had the real stature and standing in the community that introduced us at Still and Moving Center to a wider community through his forgiveness projects, and also this big project he did called the Voyage of Aloha. And he brought people from all these different aspects of the Hawaiian community together. He's one of those people who makes our community be like a well-functioning brain that has cells interconnected. He interconnects human beings. And so I was going back and I was seeing old video clips of David and me at this Voyage of Aloha back in 2012. And just the context that he gave to let all of us speak to our highest was a wonderful opportunity. And he was giving it to dozens and dozens and dozens of people just within that time frame. And then over the context of all these forgiveness projects that he has done for many years, gave so many people the opportunity to stand forward and to say something really inspirational. And these were people who he could already see, we're doing it, Greg, just like you're saying, we're already doing these things. That he was, finding people who are already doing these things. And so he happened to go to a conference in 2024, and he was sitting next to a German fellow, and the German fellow found out that Roger Epstein had been doing these forgiveness projects for many years in Hawaii, and said, we Germans could use a lot of forgiveness. So this year, on the day that represented, I think the 50th, I know it was the 50th anniversary of, I think, the German surrender, perhaps.
Mm.
also happened to be his 80th birthday. And it also, it also was the day that he was going to get remarried, as it turns out. So he appeared at a conference that brought together, I think it was 175 Germans, almost all of whom had ancestors who had either been Nazis or victims of Nazis. And they had a 4-day conference, and Roger Epstein was able to speak on his 80th birthday about the power of forgiveness and to allow a generational healing to begin to happen. And then after that, he and his bride, who had reunited after a very long gap of I don't know, 40, 50, 60 years, something, they got married. Isn't that a wonderful story?
Yeah, that's cool.
Certainly somebody who is somebody who's always creating a community of conscience.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Well, I want to
That
let
is what it is.
everybody have a chance to give a takeaway before we sign off. And
Hey, Mary.
Yeah.
How are you, Mary?
I'm blessed and grateful. I'm sorry, I was having a late lunch, so I didn't want to have everybody seeing me. But I love what you said. I love what the quote from that you're going to text to Renee about, we are the people we have been waiting for. And I
Yes.
also feel strongly, so strongly about our community. And the first community we have is our family.
Yeah.
And it's really easy to get gung-ho for some spark, and to, the family might get, if they don't all agree with it, they might get pushed aside. And
Mm-hmm.
it's a double-edged sword. It's a double-edged sword. And I just love this community. I love the hula community that we have at Still and Moving Center. Malia was very discouraged on Thursday after, Trump signed his big, beautiful, ugly bill. And just talking, we were saying, we are of an age where we went through the Vietnam War. Other people went through World War II. We've been through Kent State. We've been through different tragedies or different challenges, and we've come through. And it's because we have community. We support each other. And that's what I wanted to leave everybody with, is if you need anything, I'm here for you. Give me a call. If you need prayers, I'm a prayer warrior. If you need food, I'll bring food to you. If you need a place to stay, Renee and Cliff have opened their house. And, we are a light community. Even though we're small, we're powerful. Just like Lilo and Stitch. What? This is
Yeah.
a small ohana, but it's strong.
Mm-hmm.
Amen.
Nice.
Thank you so
That's
much,
nice.
Mary. David?
Plant more seeds.
Amen.
Yeah. I was just looking up the lyrics to Tears for Fears. Sowing the seeds of love. It's very interesting to look back on it. It was written in '89, and it's very poignant for today. Thank you, Greg.
Yeah.
Not a problem. Thank you all. This has been, it's always a pleasure to conversate and talk through these ideas, and to have a community like this that you can spend time with and, get out what's inside, because we need to. I mean, it's the purpose of community to begin with, just to be able to have a place where you can share ideas. We never do good when we're just in our head. we have to have it, given back to us, because we might be thinking something completely wrong based upon our own traumas, our own experiences. Um, I was just in Paris with my producer, and we're doing a film, and she just kept saying, "Well, I don't like Paris. The last time I went there, it was just a bad experience, blah, 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 blah." And I'm like, all right, well, in my mind, I'm like, Paris is kind of fun, but let me just not say anything and let me just show her. So we went and I took her to, and we did all the things that I normally do and showed her this and showed her that and did this, we did it. She's like, this was like the best time. Like, I don't know what happened the last time I was here. And I was like, and that's one of those things of showing and not telling, just like that's this is the key point, actually. There's another quote that I like, and it says, you can never tell a person, what to do, right? Like, people have to go through their journey to figure out something. Even if they've made a mistake, they have to experience it to understand and come to the light. You can't tell them to do it. It will never work. So being that steward or a custodian or a person of goodwill next to somebody who's just looking, even if it's one person that sees the light and turns into something different, you've done the job. You've done the job.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to mention next week's talk and the following weeks as well. And then Cliff, can I ask you to give a vote of thanks after that? Okay. Carolyn, before I did that, did you want to give a takeaway? You're muted if you do. Can you unmute? It's usually lower left corner.
While she's unmuting, I thought also when you said, Greg, that we are already participating, even
Okay.
when we're
Can you hear me
silent.
now? Can you hear me now?
Again, yeah.
Okay. I think the message of the day is to do something. I think what I found works is pick out one thing every day that you're going to do. That's kind of a little extra from just the root necessities. Maybe it's unpacking 2 boxes, or maybe it's, going 3 times around the circle where I live rather than just 2 times. So I think that's it's applying, your focus. And I think that our guests really did give some good examples of that.
Yes, yes, I think so too. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Well, Carolyn herself is going to be our presenter next week for the topic of envy to magnanimity.
Yeah.
Magnanimity. From what tradition you're going to be speaking? Are you going to do it from Confucius?
Am I going to do something what?
When you talk next week, from which tradition are you going to be speaking? Do you know?
I haven't made up my mind. I've been
Okay.
every day.
Don't worry. But we know it's going to be brilliant, whichever tradition it comes from. And the following week, we have the topic of noetic action, and that's action that's taken with this light of the mind shining through it. And we have Truk Nguyen, might be the way that she says her last name. She's from Vietnam. She's in Vietnam, and she's going to be speaking about the walking monk, who is now really making significant strides in terms of peace, and has been outlawed from both the north and the south of Vietnam as a result of and so
Sounds very interesting and challenging.
Making strides, was that a pun?
Yeah, yeah, I guess.
Nice. I see what you did there.
I meant to do that.
Yeah.
All right.
There was David, you were saying something. I didn't catch the end of what you were saying.
Oh,
But
yeah. We are all always participating, even if we're being silent.
mhm.
Cliff probably has this quote at the tip of his tongue, about even when good men stay silent,
They speak volumes.
something along those. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's time to speak out. It's not
hmm
time to stay silent.
Yeah. You have to be, you have to show, and do it the right way. You'll see that in the chat, I got the poet's name, Renee and Mary.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Jordan. Thank you so much.
hmm Yep.
Yeah. There was
Cool.
also a song that
Yep.
featured Bono. Yeah.
Yep.
Using those lyrics. Yeah.
Exactly. Thank you guys for the opportunity to speak. And thank you for everything. Thank you.
And let's let Cliff give you a thanks.
Yeah, Greg. Thanks for coming into Renee's conversation circle here. It's it's a virtual world, but somehow the distance doesn't seem that far between Hawaii and Florida right now. Just
Yeah.
seeing your face and hearing you speak, and yeah, this whole idea that Renee has set up here with it's not meant to be so lofty that it's hard to access. It's a conversation circle. And so she tries to pick people that live the ideas. And that's what is wonderful about you, is you're able to share some really deep ideas, some wonderful values and things to live one's life by, because that's what you do every day. You're putting into practice these wonderful ideas and introducing us to Wagari Matai and her story. I mean, it's so inspirational, but we can't just put these people on a pedestal. We have to engage in action in our own realm and find
Right.
our own ways to connect up with this forward progress. Because, like Michelle Alexander said, we are the river. We're not the
We are the
resistance.
river.
We're not the
hmm
resistance. We're the river. I always
Right.
back to that. And she's an inspiring person too, Michelle Alexander. And
It's
anyways,
very
thank you
true.
so much,
It's very true.
Greg, and come back to Hawaii as soon as you can, please. We miss you.
Oh my God. I want to so bad.
Uh,
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Next stop is Chicago, I think. But,
Okay.
but I definitely will find my way back. I miss you guys all. Love you guys all.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you in the shadows there, Sharani. We appreciate you always being here.
Thank you. Sorry, I was at the center and it was busy, but amazing talk, Greg. Incredible. So inspiring. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Mahalo. Have a good
Aloha.
weekend.
Bye-bye.
Aloha.
Thank
Aloha.
you.